Hey viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist and welcome back to Syria Being Hunted, episode 683. So we are slowly but surely closing in on, episode 700 and all that. Still, obviously there'll be quite a few weeks to go yet before we actually hit that particular mark, but in the meantime I do need to start thinking about what I'm actually going to be doing for that. Probably knowing me, it'll just be another Q&A and all that. Oh my goodness, I've just realised my vitality is way frigging down in this map. What the hell? I need to frigging locate some buildings. I am on the centre island actually here. But yes, no, it's another podcast style episode today, ladies and gentlemen, because Lord knows I got things on the brain and all that. Thing is, I've been having a bit of a recording session today, and I've been mainly recording more Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition. But basically I've recorded episodes 11 and 12 for that today, as of when I record this episode. Though, looking at the schedule, oh god, fucking robots all in the way of the direction I need to go. No, I was about to say was, yeah, so the day when this video, this episode of Sir, gets actually published on the channel, it'll be sort of mid-September, and Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition episode 12 will be coming out literally tomorrow. And, you know, I know as a series it hasn't been getting as big sort of, well, quite as many views as some of my other series here on the channel, but among those who are watching it, some of you nonetheless may be sort of interested. If you're interested in Beyond Good and Evil as a franchise, because basically this particular episode of BG&E involves a lot of me going around finding the bonus collectibles that are a feature in this 20th anniversary edition. And oh boy, some of them are very interesting. Can you give me some fucking food, please? Fucking bloody hunters. They're being annoying. That's what they're being. There's nothing in there. What are you guys doing over that way? We can distract you by sending you off in that direction. Send the squire off as well, mainly, so I can investigate the buildings without frigging triggering him. Oh, fuck's sake, there's like no food here! What's going on? Why is there like no food in any of these fucking doors in this town? It's because I've been here before. I need to go to another island. That's why. But yeah, basically, Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition Ep 12 here on the channel. I'm going over the sort of scavenger hunt of finding all the bonus collectibles that were implemented for that edition of the game. And basically they all are meant to establish connections with Beyond Good and Evil 2, assuming that ever gets released. But no, it's really fascinating, because we're learning about new characters, backstory, that kind of thing. So it's very, very interesting. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. It's going to be, admittedly, a bit of a mega episode. In essence, Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition Episode 12 is going to be way over an hour long, because I just found myself on this scavenger hunt thinking, oh, I can't cut the episode here, I've got to keep going. And I did. So it ended up being, what, about an hour and 12 minutes, something like that, which is pretty big, but I enjoyed it. So you may have to sit through a fair bit of stuff first before we get to the scavenger hunt bit, but it's worth it, I think, if you're interested in Beyond Good and Evil as a franchise. But I mean, this is something actually you'll hear me say in the episode itself. Let me just get to the next island, so that way the loading screen is not potentially cutting any of my audio, which it very well may do. Right, yeah. But as you'll hear me say, actually in the Beyond Good and Evil at 12, I really hope that Beyond Good and Evil 2 does eventually get released, because, you know, there came a point in the sort of late 2000s, early 2010s, when a lot of Beyond Good and Evil fans like myself and many, many others, you know, we were sort of resigned to the probability that Beyond Good and Evil 2 would never get released. Then, of course, there came that one E3 in 2017, whenever it was, where Michel Ancel and an Ubi team stepped out onto the stage and actually revealed, no, Beyond Good and Evil 2, definitely in the works, it's definitely coming and all that. But then since then, it's been radio silence on it. It just feels like there's been no real update on the game's website or anything like that. And so, you know, I've been sort of losing hope again. But then, of course, the 20th anniversary edition of Beyond Good and Evil was released, and there's all these connections that it establishes to Beyond Good and Evil 2. And I think I've sort of, you know, mentioned in that series that it feels like what Ubisoft may be doing in releasing that 20th anniversary edition is basically sort of generating the ground for Beyond Good and Evil 2, sort of establishing the groundwork for it, so that when it gets released, there's a sort of new generation of players who have played the original, have started to see the potential connections to the sequel, and thus, you know, when they get into the sequel itself, they know the characters and are ready for it, which makes sense to me. Because that's the thing, you know, if I think if they just released Beyond Good and Evil 2 now, without generating some initial interest in it, there'd be huge risk that it would bomb. Kind of like, you know, the first one did. It's not... Because obviously the first Beyond Good and Evil was critically acclaimed, but it was a commercial failure. It didn't sell very well at the time. But, you know, these days, if they can get the marketing right, then there's no reason that that should be repeated and all that. But yeah, I really, like I say, I hope it comes out. I hope it does get released. And above all, I hope Ubisoft doesn't screw it up. Because Lord knows, you know, over the last few years, it feels like Ubisoft has made certain design decisions in some of their games that have been kind of questionable. I mean, one of those you actually do see in Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition with the fucking Ubisoft Connect overlay that pops up every so often. It's like, who the fuck at Ubisoft thinks thought that was a good idea? To have this Ubisoft Connect thing, that just as you're playing a game, watching some cutscenes, not wanting to be distracted because you want to be immersed, suddenly having a fucking pop-up come up on the side of your screen in the game saying, "Ugh, you've achieved some Ubisoft Connect achievement or something." As in, who thought that was a good idea? I don't know. So I hope they ditch Ubisoft Connect in Beyond Good and Evil 2. I hope that there's a way to disable it. If not outright, just remove it and not have it as a thing. And similarly, I hope that Ubisoft, you know, doesn't screw up BG&E 2 with some of their other design choices. Because I've probably talked about this before, right? How it feels like there was a point in Ubisoft's history where, for example, like the Assassin's Creed franchise, they were absolutely milking it with just game after game after game, using the same copy-paste mechanics over and over. And to me, it even felt like they sort of did that a bit with other franchises as well, i.e. taking basically mechanics that could have just easily been in an Assassin's Creed game and taking them across into other stuff, like the original Watch Dogs. Have I ever talked about that on the channel? I think I have talked about it before, but I'll reiterate it here. Because Phil played the original Watch Dogs and he enjoyed it. And I remember back when I used to live up north, you know, I once went round to his place and we started playing it, and we must have played about 6 or 7 hours of it, and I honestly was not particularly gripped by it. I didn't think it was that great. I just thought it was kind of, yeah. It basically felt like Ubisoft's budget version of GTA, with these slapped on very shallow hacking mechanics, which essentially amounted to just hold down a button to hack the security camera, or hold down a button to hack this object. Felt like there was no real imagination put into them. And some of the mechanics in the original Watch Dogs honestly did feel like Assassin's Creed stuff that had been copied and pasted across, like parkouring up the buildings, or finding points where you can synchronise parts of the map and things like that, which it's just Assassin's Creed stuff, but with some of the mechanics being a lot shallower. And so, like I say, I really hope that basically Beyond Good and Evil 2 doesn't just end up being Assassin's Creed in space. And above all, I want Ubisoft to make sure that their characters are actually likeable. Because that's the thing. Some characters, you know, admittedly in some of their games, are likeable, you know. Some people, for example, hated Connor Kenway in Assassin's Creed 3, thinking he was kind of bland and boring. But in all honesty, I disagree with that. I don't think he was bland and boring. He was just very sort of reserved and formal, because obviously, you know, of his cultural background, and, you know, the fact that he was sort of Native American, or half Native American, at a time when Native Americans were often very much shoved around and mistreated by settlers. So there's that. But the thing is, like, other characters of theirs that Ubisoft came out with sometimes did feel like a bit wet paper bag, so to speak. Like Edward Kenway in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, I hate to say it, but whenever I look back on that character, he's the character who, I look back on and he never really gripped me all that much. Assassin's Creed Black Flag had great naval combat, but I don't really remember it for the main character. And similarly, Assassin's Creed Unity, Arno Dorian, he's another character who for me was kind of forgettable, in all honesty. I just didn't really think much of him and all that. And Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Jacob and Evie Fry were okay. I didn't mind them. Again, not characters who really gripped me all that much, but they were definitely better than some of the past protagonists in Assassin's Creed. But again, I still had sort of some issues with the way they were handled. For example, in fact, not just Jacob and Evie Fry, but also Arno Dorian in Unity. I had sort of problems with the way Ubisoft kind of handled aspects of their way they were written. Because, for example, if you take Arno and the assassins in Unity, obviously the assassins are all about freedom, right? And you would think that, therefore, they would be automatically opposed to certain historical figures. And yet, what was the thing in Assassin's Creed Unity where the assassins basically were friends of the French monarchy? Was that not something that... I seem to have recollections that was what went on. Now, apologies if I am butchering the story a bit, because it's been quite a few years since I played Assassin's Creed Unity, and admittedly, for me, it was one of the most forgettable entries in the Assassin's Creed franchise, just story-wise and all that. I don't really remember it too well. That's how little it gripped me. But I seem to remember there was a thing in that one, Assassin's Creed Unity, about the leader of the Assassin Brotherhood in Paris having a friendship with the French monarchy and therefore trying to help them, which to me always was kind of stupid even, because like the French monarchs at that time were basically autocrats, weren't they? So why would the assassins be friends with them? It just seems really odd from a writing perspective for that to be the case. To me, Unity would have had a more gripping storyline if Ubi had focused on this idea of the assassins initially being allied with the French revolutionaries, like Robespierre, for example, only to then find that bites them in the ass when Robespierre himself turns out to be a complete freaking tyrant. Because basically Robespierre in real life was a tyrant, ladies and gentlemen. When he took over after the French monarchy had been overthrown, he basically sent a lot of people to the guillotine. He screwed over a lot of people. So that would have been fascinating from a writing position, to have the assassins finding themselves kind of on the wrong side, to put it that way. To find themselves basically in their quest for freedom, supporting someone who actually just turns out to be a tyrant. So that would have been interesting, but that was never really explored, I don't think. Instead we had that weird sort of romance thing between Arno and Elise. So that was odd. And then of course in Syndicate, the other thing that kind of just got me a bit with that one again is that the assassins are supposed to be these guys who are all about freedom and destroying tyranny, but they were friends with Queen Victoria, which I know some British patriots and nationalists out there are not going to like me saying this, but let's be honest here. Queen Victoria, Empress of India, kind of presiding over the British Empire, which throughout her reign didn't exactly have some of its finest hours, let's be honest. The Opium Wars, for example, when basically Britain forced China to open its doors so that we could basically get Chinese people hooked on opium. We basically became China's drug dealer, to put it that way. And then, the Indian Mutiny of 1857, when Indian sepoys tried to rebel, and we basically just repressed them and enacted much more authoritarian systems of governance. The actions of the British East India Company at the time, that kind of thing. We weren't... there's always sort of two perspectives on history, and whilst that sort of ultra-nationalistic perspective of British history may sort of say, oh, we once ruled half the world, we were amazing. Yeah, but from the perspective of the people we were ruling, maybe not so amazing. So I feel like from a writer's point of view, why the hell would the assassins and assassin members like Jacob and Evie Fry, why on earth would they be friends with Queen Victoria, a monarch who kind of represents an imperialistic system that for many people around the world is going to be pretty tyrannical and subjugating them and all that. So it's bits of the writing like that I sometimes find Ubisoft adds these things in there, but they're not very consistent, I sometimes think, with who characters are supposed to be and what they're supposed to stand for. And I think it really speaks to how, if you're a writer, you've really got to think your characters and your world building through very carefully. And that's what I sometimes think, I don't know, Ubisoft, it feels like they don't do. And it's not just Assassin's Creed, where I feel like that sometimes has been the case. Like the original Watch Dogs, to go back to that, for instance, I sometimes feel like Ubisoft did that in their inconsistent writing and just things that felt like they didn't make sense. For example, Aidan Pierce in the original Watch Dogs, another character, another Ubisoft protagonist who I personally thought was just a wet bag, who just didn't really grab me at all, personality-wise. I mean, I get he's meant to be sort of surly and silent because he's lost his entire family, but still, he didn't grip me as a protagonist. But the thing is, like, he's meant to be this, this cloak and dagger hacker and sort of, warrior of the shadows, to put it that way. And yet, it felt like when you walk around in the original Watch Dogs, you're dressed in the most inconspicuous outfit, and the civilian NPCs you're just passing are all like, "Ooh, that looks like the mysterious hacker. I bet he's the mysterious hacker." This or that. It's like, I'm sorry, am I supposed to be this amazingly secretive, stealthy character, and yet everyone knows who I am? It's things like this in the writing that just, they're silly, and you could so easily just address those and correct them. And on top of that, gameplay mechanics, I really hope Ubisoft gets it right in Beyond Good and Evil 2. Because again, if you take Watch Dogs as an example, I can't speak obviously for Watch Dogs 2 or Watch Dogs Legion or anything like that, but certainly from what I saw of my 6 or 7 hours that I played of the original Watch Dogs, for a game that was all about hacking, the actual hacking mechanics felt really shallow and really bland, as though they just amounted to just hold down this button to hack the security camera. Oh, just hold down this button now to hack this computer. And it was like, it just felt really bland and unimaginative. Because it felt like, if you were going to do hacking mechanics, you could make those very complex and in-depth and really interesting. You could sort of weave in a bit of like a bit of espionage. Oh, you need to crack the password of such and such, a person who works at this corporation. Oh, therefore, do a search on the internet. Find you find that this person has like a social media page, so you have to try and figure out their social media passwords so you can get in and find information that then enables you to, I don't know, glean things that evil corporation X is doing, or potential locations that you could go and investigate in game, things like that. You see, you could do so much with hacking mechanics like that by taking actual inspiration from how actual hackers do it. But Ubisoft, it felt like, didn't do that with the original Watch Dogs from what I saw of it. They just went for the bland, hold this button to hack the computer, which I think just doesn't help the game at all. Sorry, this has turned into a bit of a rant about Ubisoft, which, to be honest, I'll probably title the video something like Red Rants about Ubisoft's friggin' game design or whatever, something like that. But yeah, that's probably enough from me. I think this will probably do for a podcast-style episode. So hope you enjoyed listening to me rant about that for a bit, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, there are definite lessons to take out of what I've talked about there. In the meantime, social media links, propagandist channel link, blah blah blah, are all down in the video description. I'm getting gas coming up from my throat from my tea. Oh, good lord. So yeah, join me next time. I don't know what I'll do next episode. Maybe a podcast one, or maybe a challenge if I can think of a good one. We'll see. Alright, yeah, join me for that then, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll sign off now. Goodbye, everybody. But yeah, I just remember like the demo had sort of two particular levels to it. There's like a level set on a tropical island. There's a level set in sort of like an ancient mine or something, from what I remember. It's been a long, long time. It's been years, ladies and gentlemen. So yes, there will be things that I absolutely forgot. Yes, show me the trick. You know, I think I've talked about a similar subject over on my Series Being Hunted series before. Platforming franchises that never survived, kind of the 90s. Because the thing is, oh god, looks like there's a flight area in this part. Yeah, I did a Series Being Hunted episode quite some time ago where I'd watched an Outside Extra video, which was literally about that subject, on platforming franchises that people maybe don't really remember.